Okay, so what is a layer? Well, layer takes in a list of vectors, which you should best think of as just a list of arrows, and produces another list of arrows. Now, these arrows represent some meaning of some word. Don't necessarily know, whilst the process is going on, what word they represent, but the idea is that by the end of it, this last arrow here at the top should represent the meaning of the next word. And so here's our layer. And as I have told you already, the layer involves rotary, positional, encoding. In fact, two of them. Now, inside of a layer, what we have to do, first thing we have to do, in fact, is do something called a normalization. That's because it's not guaranteed that all of these vectors will look neatly the same length as over here. One of them might be this long, and another one might be effectively invisible. That's how small they could get. And as the operations progress through the layer, might be a problem if we have one massive vector getting even bigger, or a smaller vector becoming so small that it becomes zero. So first we have to normalize them, and what that means is we have to get them to the same length. So after that, all of them will be of the same length. And the meaning of the words is actually represented in what way they are pointing. The next step is something called attention, abbreviated thus. What attention does is it takes in all of the arrows, all of the vectors here, and it takes it into 3 slots. The query slot, the key slot, and the value slot. Now, for the query and the key slot, we apply something called rotational positional encoding, where we remind the layer where these words were in the sentence. We remind it that this is the first word, this is the second word, and then this is the third word. And so these all go into all of these. They go into this rope, and then go into the query input, then they go into the key input, and then they also go into the value input. Now, just treat this as a black box. They go into these 3 different inputs, and what it produces for us is a new set of vectors, which might look very different. Now, these vectors again might have different lengths, so we need to apply a normalization to them. Then we perform just some random multiplications on these vectors. We multiply this list of numbers by a bunch of numbers. And this is done in something called a linear unit. So we multiply these numbers by other numbers to get numbers. Which might sound confusing. This is how it looks. We take in this list of numbers, and we say that each number over here can affect every other number over here. And then the question is, well, by how much? We give each of these a weighting. How much does this number affect the last number over here? This is done in something called a matrix multiplication. The linear unit has a bunch of matrix multiplications, which make each number affect every other number. And we hope that this gives us the correct result.